I like when Fujimoto gets in his bag, his artistic bag. He starts to pull out all of the stops. You get these beautiful double pages and full single spreads and really creative artistic vision from him. And he does this often, you know what I mean? But clearly you can tell that his art style has changed and evolved and is a little bit more wonky and all over the place within part 2. And there's probably a lot of reasons for that, the evolution of his style, but also trying to keep up with demands and assistance and a lot of other work that naturally you would think changing to a different magazine would help him offload, that he would be able to artistically create the story that he wants with his vision because he has a bit more, leverage or leniency. I don't actually think that's the case. We don't know the specifics and I don't want to go into semantics, but just with how his art style has evolved, he seems more kind of under pressure than ever before. But I might be jumping the gun there. It's kind of difficult to tell. I don't necessarily dislike his art style. It definitely has changed. It has morphed into its own thing. I'm just more so curious on the reasoning. Is it because of pressure or time, or maybe he's burnt out, maybe it's to make things easier, I don't know. Or is it just a choice? Something that he's evolved into naturally, something that he enjoys doing. Regardless, his process and style is still kind of similar to each other. It just gives a different feeling and or vibe, especially when it comes to his characters. Fujimoto has always had a little bit of an issue with the same face syndrome, but I think this chapter here, unless there is an ulterior motive for it, is the biggest, greatest example of that same face syndrome. When talking about this chapter, it's funny because the first half really is just beautiful double spreads, very creative, very all over the place, and that feels like Tatsuki Fujimoto. But then you get to the second half of the chapter and it's like, okay, the person that Asa was chasing was her mother. We've seen her before at the beginning of the story, and I wish I could show you the manga panel, I can't for legal reasons, of the differences between them. Like, yeah, they look similar structurally, but artistically they're entirely different people. Is this for a different reason? Like a mental, emotional, internal reason? Maybe Asa is seeing herself within her mother, which I think would be an interesting play on it. Or is this just Fujimoto's style actually changing? Because they do look different. I posted it on Twitter if you want a direct comparison. I'm not mad about it, I just find it funny. I like where this stuff with Asa is going, because there's a lot of ways that Fujimoto can take it and can evolve it, and I am sticking with my predictions, my guns, that Asa is kind of seeking herself, but also the trauma-related stuff around it is pretty normal. Like, we've seen this before. Actually, we've seen this entire chapter before. The first half is actually very similar to Chainsawman versus Makima. She had the exact same stipulation, if you will. If you kill her, all of the people of Japan will start to die one by one. That's the contract that she made. Yoru has the exact same thing, but for California. I'm sorry to all of my American viewers, you're now a part of this directly. This doesn't really affect Chainsaw Man or Pochita in any sort of way. We've seen his reaction to it before, but it does change things a little bit. This fight can't lead on because more and more people that are innocent will start to die. And again, Pochita is not a hulking beast that is unredeemable. He does have thought and he does have conscience and he is kind and nice. However, that does not mean he's going to stop fighting Yoru, which is the funniest part about it. And what could happen is that he starts to figure things out differently. We're moving up to that point of being stuck between a rock and a hard place, because the easiest thing that Pochita could now do is erase Yoru, erase war. So instead of trying to kill her over and over and figure out a way to overcome that, if you erase war, theoretically you don't erase all the people that are connected to her. Kind of bypass that death contract, like Makima, you win. Right? Because we are implementing this idea now that Pochita could just erase Yoru, we have the problem. If Yoru gets erased, there's a very high chance that so does Asa. If Yoru goes, Asa goes, and it's because they are merged together. I don't know how far that goes, but the idea is starting to present itself more and more, especially especially when you take into consideration the end half of this chapter with Yoru trying to find herself, trying to deal with her trauma. And I think relating back to her mother, which is a traumatizing event, but also hasn't crippled her entirely, is an interesting way to go. It's a development that I'm excited to see how it unfolds because, again, there's a lot of ways. Asa is a funny character, and I actually think the beginning half of Chainsaw Man Part 2 with her specifically is some of the best work that Fujimoto has done for his characters. Don't get me wrong, I love Chainsaw Man Part 1, but it's a very closed story. It's safe in a lot of departments with Fujimoto specifically telling things that he wants, kind of relinquishing everything else. He just pushes everything else to the side. You don't really notice it, and that's perfectly okay. It works, it's functional, it's great storytelling. His character work for Denji, I think, is his most impressive from part 1, but also like Aki and Power and Makima, very beautiful characters, very solid all throughout, and have a ton of ways that you can explore them, especially Makima. The beginning half of Asa feels like an evolution of Denji in all of the best ways. Take everything that Denji has done, give it to Asa, and then just make her complicated. And this young teenage girl struggling to figure everything out, figure herself out, has no friends, is kind of a loser, really just complicated. He could have fumbled this character really hard. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many ways that a character like Asa Mitaka can go wrong because of how complicated and emotionally kind of weird she can be. She feels almost flippant. She doesn't have this overarching progression that kind of makes sense. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's very circular in a lot of ways. And that's a word I use often with Fujimoto in Chainsaw Man Part 2 is that he writes circular. So he kind of always comes back to an idea or a point or a thing that he started so long ago. Asa, right now, coming full circle. If you don't remember the trauma stuff that happened with Asa and her mother, let me refresh you real quick. Her and her mother kind of accidentally caught up within a devil attack, the cyclone, tornado, devil, whatever. Asa decided to save a cat. She trips, her mother saves her, and in that process, her mother gets killed because of her. Asa has reflected upon this a couple of different times, but when it comes to her mother directly, not necessarily. And it's mostly because of how she, I guess, closes it off, at least in my opinion. Asa talks about her mother and the fault of that situation very directly. She will blame herself in a really obvious way. Like, of course, it's my fault that my mother died because I tried to save a cat and, couldn't lock in and actually not trip over. And that's the whole motif of her continuing to trip over in certain situations, which reminds her of her mother's trauma, is that in high tense or critical situations, she panics and can't actually do anything. But she does always frame it in the context of heart. Usually she's doing something of heart or value to offset that type of trauma. So even if she trips, it's okay because she's doing it out of her own goodness of her heart. Saving that cat, saving her friend, you name it. Even though she knows it's going to end in a bad way if she does it, it still means right to her. You might think that's done. It's full circle, full stop, you don't need to do any more, right? Kind of. It seems like Fujimoto wants to dive a little bit more into that personality, into the influence of her mother and obviously what that means to her. And this alleyway and obviously seeing her mother and chasing after her is a perfect reflection of that. Her life has gone kind of downhill and she has become the character that she is because of that very traumatizing moment. The fact that she hasn't really healed from that traumatizing moment and is now seeking it so desperately is her wanting to perhaps try and heal it. Potentially trying to forgive herself. I guess my hopes for this is that it connects directly back to the Yoru Asa merging situation. If she's able to find herself, perhaps she can take over Yoru's body mid-fight, or she can try to separate herself from her body. I'm not too sure yet. That's the issue that I'm currently facing. Asa and Yoru cannot be separated, and if Asa gets bodied by Yoru's personality, she won't be able to ever come back. If Pochito erases her, she's probably dead and gone for good. This might be her access to bring her full circle, to make her whole, and to make her emotionally perhaps stable. if she is able to build this foundation, it might buy them enough time to figure out a way to erase Yoru without killing Asa. As simple as this chapter was, I think there's great things in here, things to look forward to. I'm excited to see where Fujimoto wants to take the ending of this story and how much more complex it could be. I hope that Death and Fami somehow get involved. I would like to see more from Yoru and like using different devils and primal fears and yada yada. Will we ever see Kobeni? Will we ever see Power again? Will we ever see old mate Kishibe? I don't know. I would like to. This would be a prime time to bring all of them back out. I want to see those characters, but Fujimoto probably doesn't have a plan for them. I would love to be wrong. That is all. If you like Chainsaw Man, if you like me, perhaps like the video and subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you, I love you, and I will see you when I see you.